dump or don't say a word. Move my head around like a startled bird. Can't do housework when I choose. When I win, I convince myself I lose. Fabric feels weird against my skin. I gotta hold my breath when I take out the bin. Can't go out cause it's too hot and bright. I can't sleep at night cause there's too much light. The bees in my brain won't let me speak. My thought process is quite unique. The mask comes off and now I'm weird. Everything is as I feared. Living in this world can be quite a chore. We've all had enough, but we still want more. Leave me alone. I don't want interference. Hey, not, mate. That's your autistic experience.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Autistic Experience. It is the 15th of October 2023. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kieran, as always joined by Chloe.
Hi.
Hi. New episodes.
Sup?
Oh, okay. No, it's alright. New episodes come out every Sunday at midday British time. And while you're not listening to this, you can go follow us on Instagram at The Autistic Experience. And also, if you're feeling generous, go and leave us a nice review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on. Thanks to those who have already reviewed. We had a look at them the other day. We found some on Spotify, which I think only gave us some stars rather than actual words, but stars are very nice. We have quite a few of them now.
Yeah, quite a few stars.
Quite a few stars. As usual, we're going to be looking through this past week in neurodivergent news. We're going to be answering an Internet Randos question on Question for the Week. And then we're going to have a look forward to the week coming with some of the events happening up and down the UK. But first, of course, it's Home Life.
Woo!
Woo! Just to check in to see what we've been doing this week. Now, last Sunday was the day we had our little foster pig Edison. He went off to his forever home.
Yes, he did.
And from all accounts, he's settling in quite well.
Yeah, he looks like he's doing fantastically, which we expected.
Yes, he's got a new girlfriend.
He has.
And he seems very excited to try and say hi properly. But
Yes.
that ain't how bonding works, so he's got to be patient.
Doesn't stop him from trying to break his way through all
No,
the
it
time,
doesn't
though.
stop him. No, it doesn't stop him. What else have we been up to?
Well, we did some baking, didn't we?
We did.
I've been on a bit of a shopping spree.
You got a new phone?
I have got a new phone, yes. I was going to say I took that yesterday. I went for a little swim, and I took my new phone down to see if I could get some fun camera things, photos. That's the thing.
Camera things, yeah.
Camera things.
Camera things.
And I was having a small meltdown about how incredibly good the camera quality is on this compared to my previous phone that I've just replaced. So that was very nice. I also did a bit of underwater swimming, diving down to the bottom of Sulphur Keys, which was terrifying.
Yeah. I don't want to see what's down there.
Well, you know what? It's quite dark, so you can't make out a lot of it, but that makes it scarier for some reason, because I'm down there and I'm like, I don't know what this is and I don't want to be near it. I mean, most of it was plants, I think, but I still didn't want to be near it. And then I suddenly became aware again of the fish that are in the dock. And then I was like, no, thank you. And also just the general idea of being on the water, I think, is scary, but also really cool. It's a weird experience.
Yeah, especially weird considering you do kind of work in water sports and are afraid of open water.
Exactly. Like, I really want to go scuba diving, but also I'm really scared of deep water. It's cool, though. There was a few times when I was, like, under and I flipped myself over to look up to the surface while I was underneath the water, and it looks really cool, so I liked that.
Well, I can't remember whether it was this week or last week, but I had a win against executive dysfunction.
Oh, yeah?
In that after 2.5 years of living in this place, we finally have our gas and electricity bills going to the right address. So that's nice. And in a 2-for-1, we've also got smart meters getting installed at some point.
Hey. So we can be really paranoid
Yeah.
watching our dial go up.
Yeah, now we get to
Constantly.
stare in guilt
Yeah.
at our electricity usage
Yeah.
going up.
Considering we're on the TV or like playing
All the time.
games constantly,
Yeah.
it's going to be painful.
But we don't use the heating.
We don't.
Anyway, that was my thing this week, I think.
My thing is probably just buying a ton of clothes.
Yeah, you've done that.
As I've bought, if anybody's familiar with probably everybody is familiar now with Lucy and Yak. Done a bit of a spree on Lucy and Yak. So
Yeah.
I've bought like 4 actually different things from Lucy and Yak this week just because it's so comf. Like
Immediately after this recording, we have to go pick up a load of your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, at least one of which is a Lucy and Yak thing. I highly recommend go wear Lucy and Yak clothes. They're super comfy.
I mean, not sponsored, but again, you know.
Yeah, they're super comfy and they're good for the planet. Go wear Lucy and Yak. But also don't because it's my thing.
Well, I think that's probably enough for home life, don't you? We don't have time to get into all that business. So we're going to jump straight into neurodivergent news. As usual, we've picked a couple of stories which have popped out to us, and we'll give you a quick brief on what they're about, what they discuss, and then give you our thoughts on it. And of course, everything we talk about on here we'll put references to on our Instagram page at The Autistic Experience, so you can go and read them yourself and come to your own conclusions. So, as we found out a couple of weeks ago, October is ADHD Awareness Month.
Woohoo.
And boy, are we aware of how bad it is for ADHD people right now. So our first article comes to us from Women's Health magazine. This article was published on the 9th of October, and it's entitled, "The ADHD Medication Shortage is Leaving People Stranded, Say Experts." Now, if you've got ADHD, you know where this is going, because you've probably had some sort of communication from your doctor, where they're like, we can't do your prescription anymore, so good luck with that.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Useful.
Yeah, so according to this article, there are about 200,000 people in the UK taking ADHD medication. And, you know, this isn't just in the UK, this is a worldwide issue. But I think one of the things I found interesting about this article is that it estimates that, let's round it up to about 2 million adults have ADHD. And if only about 200,000 people are being medicated for it, that means about 10% are actually getting the treatment.
Which is not a lot.
It's not a lot. There will be, you know, a degree of severity. So some people may choose not to be medicated
Yeah.
if they feel they can manage their symptoms. Some people may not be able to take the medication for whatever reason, like maybe a drug allergy or something. You know, there are various different reasons why they may not have it, but still, that's 200,000 people not being able to get the medication they need to make their brain work.
Yeah. Well, it's like the ADHD UK's chief executive, who we did check does have ADHD himself.
Yeah, well, ADHD UK is like the UK's, as you can imagine, leading ADHD charity.
Oh, yeah, but...
And from what I can see, all of their top people have ADHD and have worked extensively within ADHD research for a while.
That is very good because you never know with these things. It's quite often you get these things run by people who don't actually know what it's like.
Well, luckily, as we're going to go on to a bit later, the UK, for all its failings, does have a bit more rigorous standards than, say, the US. But more on that later.
But yeah, what he said in the article, Henry Shelford, his name is, kind of compared it to taking a wheelchair suddenly from, you know, somebody that can't walk properly on their own or can't get around on their own. If they need a wheelchair and you just suddenly remove it, like that can be a sort of effect that it has on people who suffer maybe quite strongly from their symptoms of ADHD. Like, they use the medicine to function.
Yeah.
And if you just stop it, they suddenly kind of can't function.
It's still this stigma around ADHD, especially, that people think that, if you just focus, if you just concentrate, if you just try, then you can just get over it. So not having the medication, it's no big deal. But it is, as you said, like, imagine doing that to, like, cancer patients.
Yeah.
I think one of the best comparisons is, like, what if they did that to diabetic people?
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, we don't have insulin for you.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Like, that can get very bad.
Yeah.
And it's the same with people who have ADHD, because although you won't necessarily have, say, like, the same physical consequence that you would, say, in a diabetic person, like, the mental effect can be massive.
Yeah. But I think it's probably because it is just a mental effect. It's not necessarily visible.
Yeah.
That people don't appreciate the gravity of it.
Yeah. But actually, it can result in people going into really dark places mental health wise, and even, people taking their own lives and things. So, like, it's no less serious, really.
No, exactly.
I'd just like to sneak in here as well that it's not the only medication shortage that's going on at the moment. I personally have had my prescription for antidepressants changed because the dose that I've been prescribed is currently going through a shortage.
Yeah.
So I've had to get a different dose and just take more of that, basically. So fortunately I can still get it, but I know there's a lot of problems with different medications at the minute. For, funnily enough, another example of a mental health medication that's going through a shortage. Fancy that.
Fancy that. But yeah, we're going to hop on to our second story, which is very much connected, because you may remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about York's pilot system for ADHD assessments, which kind of bars everyone but the very, very extreme cases from even getting referred. It seems there's a bit of a problem in Yorkshire at the moment, because I think Sheffield has this beat. So this article is on Now Then, which is a Sheffield-based magazine. This was also published on the 9th of October. And I do quite like this article because there's, like, graphs and maths and there's numbers to back it up, which is really quite nice.
They're nice figures as well.
They are.
Very clear.
Just in Sheffield itself, in between June 2022 and 2023, there were just shy of 5,500 people on the waiting list. But during that entire year, the number of people who actually got assessments, not diagnosis, assessments, 21. Throughout an entire year,
Insane.
21 adults were assessed for ADHD, and only 9 of them got diagnosed. So they've helpfully done the maths on this, and it said that at a rate of 21 assessments per year, which is 1.75 a month, to get through the current waiting list, so that's not adding extra people on, that's just the current waiting list, it would take 261 years to get through.
That's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. And the Sheffield Adult Autism and Neurodevelopmental Service, which is the service responsible for providing these, as well as the autism assessments, their estimated wait time is 5 years, which is still a long time.
Yeah.
But if the math suggests that they're going to take a little shy of 3 centuries to get through the current list.
Yeah, it seems a bit of a bad estimate, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, a little bit.
So it kind of makes it a bit pointless. Like, it feels pointless. I can imagine other people would look at that and go, well, there's no point in me even trying.
Yeah.
And then if people are struggling, they're just stuck, aren't they?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I would get put off if it was a 1-year wait.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing. We want, like, not necessarily instant gratification. We don't necessarily want it done now. We just want it done in a reasonable time, because we're still going to struggle through that. So if we have to wait 5 years to even start to get any sort of help, then that's just ridiculous. And like going private is no guarantee of help either.
Yeah, this article talks about the statistics. We've mentioned this before, that people with ADHD and autism are much more likely to be unemployed.
Oh, yeah.
And going private can be quite expensive.
Yeah, it can.
So it's quite likely that a lot of people with ADHD won't be able to afford to go private because they don't work.
Yeah, and also going private, getting the medication from a private place is a lot more expensive than going through the NHS or a shared care situation. Because I've read like people have had to pay up to like £200 to £300 a month for their medication.
Gee. And then a prescription with the NHS, one prescription is like £9.60, which will do you for like a month.
But then you've got to wait 5 years.
Yeah. It's.
And as we mentioned with the Panorama episode back in May, I think it was, a lot of GPs are now no longer accepting right to choose referrals.
Yeah.
Or like private diagnoses.
Yeah.
So it's a big old mess.
It is. And I wanna kind of mention this bit as well that's a bit later on, where it talks specifically about basically every group of people that are not young white guys. Because that's the stereotype for people with ADHD. Therefore, most of the people that are going to get into adulthood and not be diagnosed are women, people of colour, trans people, older people, like anyone that's not a young white guy. They're the people that are going to be missed until adulthood, and therefore they're the people that are going to end up on these really long-ass waiting lists more than anyone else. So it's just another way that makes it harder for women, older people, trans people.
Anyone not young and white, basically.
Which is a lot of people.
Yeah. The thing is, it's not like autism where, we're kind of getting to the place where self-identification is a lot more commonplace for the exact same reasons, that getting a formal diagnosis can take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But because ADHD is medicated and so highly regulated, you can identify as having ADHD. And at the moment, I do. I am on a waiting list. I've been there for like a year now, and I still don't know how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
I should probably phone at some point to try and check, but what am I going to do? Make a phone call? Not this guy. But because in order to try and manage those symptoms, you do kind of need to have some sort of medication. But because it is so highly regulated, you can't just go, can I have a box of those, please?
Yeah. And also, they're not around at all. So they wouldn't be there even if you could get them.
So having ADHD at the moment is a very much lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
Happy ADHD Awareness Month.
Yay.
So moving on to our third article, which was published on the 10th of October, which was Mental Health Awareness Day, or at least Mental Health Day. The one day I think we're allowed to have it.
Yeah.
The rest of the time we're a mess, but like just that one day.
Everyone's like, oh, we're so sympathetic and we really support you all.
Yeah, every other day they're like, now get out of here.
Yeah, get a grip and function properly.
Yeah. But this article is entitled, This World Mental Health Day, I'm actually sick of raising awareness. So we should probably mention at the outset of this particular article that it does have some slightly more mature themes. So it does talk about quite sensitive topics. So if you're a bit sensitive towards topics such as things that can happen when you have particularly bad mental health, I'm just trying to get around Spotify and iTunes' maturity thing here, because if we actively say certain words, I'm not quite sure how algorithms work, but I know especially like on YouTube, if you even say certain words, then it can go, we need to restrict access to this.
Yeah.
So if you're particularly sensitive to hearing about topics that can happen if you get very, very, very bad mental health, check the show notes. So that's the description, and it'll tell you what time you can skip to. Okay, I think we got around that.
Can we still not say the word then?
I think we'll have to use clever euphemisms.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you resonated quite well with this article, Chloe. So do you want to just give a quick rundown of what it goes over?
Yeah. So the lady that's writing it, she does quite a lot for mental health awareness. She talks quite openly about some of the kind of issues she's had and experiences she's had in order to try and, like I say, make people aware of it, make people more comfortable being open about their experiences and things like that. And she's essentially saying now that, with all the kind of government cuts, the lack of funding, the problems with it, it kind of seems like doing that year on year to raise awareness of mental health is almost a bit pointless. And it shouldn't be necessary anyway, because people should kind of be aware of it by this point. And so, yeah, she's basically just saying she's getting a bit sick of the fact that it's not achieving anything. It doesn't seem like it's achieving anything.
This article's on Cosmopolitan, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before. It says there's, at the moment, a 6-week wait time target to get patients seen by a therapist on the NHS, which is met 75% of the time, and then a fallback target of 18 weeks, which is met 95% of the time. Now, 18 weeks is about 4.5 months.
Yeah.
Which, depending on your mental health at the time, is incredibly, incredibly slow.
Yeah.
So just think back to like your worst day that, maybe you've had thoughts of a darker nature and things have gotten far too much. And then someone says, okay, we'll get to you in 4 months.
Yeah. Well, as you say, that bit does resonate with me because I've been waiting now for my therapy to start for, I don't even know how long at this point.
Yeah.
A while.
A long time.
And I haven't heard anything from them. I was told it might be like 6 weeks. It's been way more than 6 weeks. Yeah. And I don't even know what's going on with it anymore. Like, I could do with it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know when it's going to happen. So I understand that. And it's frustrating. It is annoying.
Yeah, because it's just running with this theme, especially with the ADHD stuff, is that people cannot get the help they need.
Yeah.
Like, there are charities like, ADHD UK and like Autism or UK in Mind especially are doing really good work to try and help people. But the thing is, charities are fantastic things. But the fact that we need charities is a failing of the government. They're only there because the government cannot help its people.
Yeah. And also there's the issue with charities being chronically underfunded as well.
Yeah. Because they are funded by, charities.
Yeah.
Like people giving their spare money. And especially in times of a cost of living crisis, spare money is quite rare.
Yeah. So it's all...
Yeah, we won't get into a full political rant right now because we both had a cup of coffee and we're feeling quite sleepy.
We could rant for a long time. I could rant for a long time on politics. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I agree with the article. There shouldn't really be any need to raise further awareness for mental health. I feel like everybody knows about it now, or everybody should know about it. It's just the fact that nothing is done.
Yeah.
Nothing changes, and that's nothing to do with the people who are trying to raise awareness. That's purely to do with the people, like you said, in the government, in positions of authority that can change it, just don't.
And I think especially there's still a massive stigma about talking about your own mental health.
Yeah.
Up to the point, as we've demonstrated, if you're broadcasting this sort of thing, then even saying certain words can restrict access to adults only.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it's young people and teenagers that need to hear other people talking about it in a healthy way.
Yeah, definitely.
But, people get squeamish about those certain words and prevents people from talking about it. And that's really not good. It doesn't help anyone.
No. Well, not talking about it can directly lead to it happening.
Yeah, because I don't want to have to tread around the issue. So what I'm going to do is just kind of do some tactical bleepage of certain areas so I can try and talk freely and you can understand what we're talking about without going through a whole different set of euphemisms, which is what people do
Yeah.
and what they have to do due to censorship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we're talking about like harm and aside, then like there's such a stigma about it that like you can't talk about it at all in any sort of healthy way without being like shut down or referred for help, which
Yeah.
as we've seen doesn't come. So that, you know, and also like especially laws in this country, I know we'll try and avoid getting into the debate we usually get into around this time, but the stigma around taking your own life in the UK is such that people do not talk about their own mental health problems because they feel they will get in trouble for it.
Please, can I just make my point? Assisted it should be legal.
There
There
we
we go. I have to say it.
Yeah. So like even on a podcast or like on a YouTube channel, due to the censorship things they have in place, which they say is like to protect children, they're some of the ones who need to hear it the most because like depending on the point in their lives, especially if they're, you know, struggling with like their own mental health, which a lot of teenagers do.
Yes.
If they see absolutely zero material on people actually talking about it, how are they going to know to talk about it?
Yeah. And you don't understand it either. If you're a teenager and you're feeling bad and you're struggling and you don't see any material talking about it, how are you supposed to make sense of what you're feeling?
Yeah.
And that can usually lead to more sort of like harm behaviours because they don't understand what they're actually feeling.
Yeah.
So they just take it out another way.
Yeah, and then if you actually try and talk to someone about it, the response does tend to be, don't feel that.
Yeah.
Which A, is not particularly helpful,
Yeah.
and B, is it's such a common thing we hear when we have like emotional meltdowns, for instance. It's like, oh, just don't do that.
Yeah. Like I wish.
Or if you're acting weird in public, people are like, oh, just don't do that. Don't think the way you think. Don't feel the way you feel.
Yeah. Just be normal and blend in with the crowd.
So, you know, whilst it is true that I think talking about your own mental health is becoming more widely accepted, that's only the case for mild depression
Yeah.
or kind of every so often bad times. But when it gets into the more severe stuff, people don't want to hear about it for some reason.
Oh, yeah. I know. When I got referred for this round of therapy that hasn't actually started yet, obviously you always get asked to do questionnaires, and one of the questions on that is talking about like harm and suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And when I was asked about that and I heard the guy on the phone mention like suicidal thoughts and suicide, I was like, I don't know how to respond. You know, like it was a really kind of weird thing to talk about because, like you say, you're not encouraged to talk about that.
No.
So you don't know how. And when someone brings it up to you so directly, you're like, I don't know what to do with this.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's still, even in the language we use to talk about it, because yourself used to be a criminal act,
Mm-hmm.
people do still call it committing suicide, which means I've done this crime.
Yeah.
Right, which is now why, like, in the news, for example, they say took their own life.
Yeah.
Still more of a euphemism, but, like, it still has this connotation of being a bad thing to do. I know that face. That's the I want to talk about euthanasia now face.
Yeah. But I'm not.
But this is not quite the place for it, because we haven't even got onto the spicy story yet.
No, I know.
So we need to save some brain space for getting onto that.
Okay. I mean, you can edit this sentence out. I'm just going to say it really quickly that I think it's really stupid how people want to protect life at absolutely any cost whatsoever. And that actually, by making somebody taking their own life a criminal act, you're actually taking away their free will. So, yeah, if somebody is given true free will, then that includes the free will to choose when they die. Just saying.
But yeah, that article is up on Cosmopolitan if you want to read it. As with all the rest, just check out our Instagram page at The Autistic Experience to check out the references to everything we're talking about here. It's time to move on to our question of the week. Question of the week! Okay, so, as usual, we go scrambling through the minds of Reddit to find some bit of advice which we can provide. That's not too long a post because we do tend to ramble on a bit.
Yes. Yes, we do.
So, this one's fairly simple. So, the post says, "Hello everyone. I work in a special school where most students are on the spectrum. There is one new student who hasn't said a word at school since September. She's a new student to our school. Apparently she talks all the time when she's at home. Could you give me some tips on how to build a better relationship with her so she starts to talk to me, if that is possible?" There's a bit more. "She's the first student with selective mutism that I met in my school. She smiles to me when I say hello, nods her head or shrugs her shoulders when I say something to her, so I see that as a success already. Please let me know why some people with autism choose not to speak, for example, at school." Okay, so how about I read out my answer?
That's what I was thinking. We can discuss from there.
And then we can go from there.
Likely that you've already said a couple of things that I want to say anyway.
Okay, so the thing I wrote is, I think the first thing to clear up is that it's not always about choice. The selective part of selective mutism implies that we select when it happens. For the most part, we really don't, and that's why the community as a whole tends to refer to it as situational mutism, but I like to call it temporary mutism. You know, this person mentions that the student talks all the time at home, and like that's where she's comfortable, right? That's where she can safely unmask. And I said that if she's a new student, then it's a brand new place, new people, new everything. She's likely just getting used to the place and it'll take time. Like, if she's comfortable enough, she'll talk, but until then, you just have to be patient and supportive. She seems perfectly willing to smile, nod, and otherwise communicate non-verbally. So that's a good start as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'd pretty much agree with that. I mean, obviously the selective point was the first thing I wanted to say as well. It's not really her choosing to do it. But yeah, I think it's possibly something that will change with time, but it's not necessarily going to change with time. Like, maybe she'll never talk at school.
Yeah, maybe.
You don't know. But as you say, all you can do is just support, don't pressure it. The fact that she's communicating non-verbally, I would say just let her do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, make that work. And then if she's ever comfortable enough to talk, then she will.
Yeah, I did have a bit of further interaction with a poster, and they said that they do already work with plenty of non-verbal kids. So as far as I'm concerned, it's basically treat as non-verbal until told otherwise.
Yeah, pretty much. It'll come with time. Like, there's not really anything that the poster can do to make this child comfortable. It's just patience.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a reference to last week, but it's like when you get a new guinea pig in, right? You can't expect them to be all excited and weaky the instant they move in because they've got to get used to the place.
Yeah.
It's stressful, man.
Yeah, that's it. And it sounds like the poster is really good. And the fact that they acknowledge, you know, they say the non-verbal communication is a really good start. Like, that it's good.
Yeah.
It is good. Like, they're not coming at it as a kind of, this kid isn't speaking and it's really bad and I want to make them speak.
Yeah,
They're just looking for a way
this
to
is
build
a
a
perfectly
relationship.
it's a good question because it's not coming from a place of judgment. It's just curiosity.
Yeah,
and curiosity is
exactly.
always fine. Like, we don't mind answering questions about autism or being autistic.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate the poster for saying that, you know, the fact that the girl is smiling and, you know, nodding and interacting non-verbally. I appreciate the fact that they've said that that's good. It shows that they understand, you know what I mean? And I think that's all they need to keep doing. Keep doing what they're doing already.
That's more or less what I said.
Yeah.
If you're getting smiles and a polite enough response, even if it's non-verbal, then that's good.
Yeah, you're obviously making her feel as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
When she's uncomfortable.
Patience and support.
Yeah.
Is the way to go, as usual. So a fairly easy one for question of the week, which means we can hop straight on to upcoming events in the next week, in and also in the UK. I was going to say in and around the UK, but...
In and also in the UK.
Yeah, also and similarly in the UK. Okay, so there's a lot happening tomorrow, the 16th of October. So if you're listening to this past the Monday, sorry. Bit late.
Got to be on it.
Yeah, you got to be on listening to this. But bear in mind, quite a lot of these events do repeat over time, so they're not always just one-offs. So if you hear of something close to you, maybe have a little look, see if they're doing anything upcoming in the future, just in case you have missed this one particular one. So happening tomorrow, the 16th, between 7 and 9 in the evening, happening in Inverness.
Inverness! Sorry.
And that's the one. That's the one, yeah. At Cafe 1668 in Inverness is the ADHD support group for women and non-binary people. So it says, we discuss as a group how ADHD impacts and influences our relationships, education, employment, mental health, and everything in between. So that's organised by Dopamine Dolls.
Love that.
Just having a read through, and it seems pretty solid.
I mean, I'm sold on Dopamine Dolls, but...
I'm just having a look down the event page, and it's got just ground rules, which are just, it's like, be kind to yourself. If you feel overwhelmed, always do what you need to do to take care of yourself and be safe. Please do not share medication of any kind with...
Good.
And they've got visual maps, so they've got a picture of where they're meeting and the door you have to go through.
Oh, that's really good. Oh, I love that.
So if you're looking for that, the organisation is called Dopamine Dolls, and you can email admin@dopaminedolls.co.uk if you want any more information on that. But I'm sure they're doing plenty of events throughout the year, so keep an eye on that if you're up North Scotland direction. Then also happening on tomorrow, it's a weird way of saying it, also happening tomorrow between 7 and 9 p.m, weirdly enough. This happens actually on every third Monday of the month. So this is at the Exchange Pub in Southend-on-Sea. It's a neurodivergence craft and chat. So it's a couple of hours doing kind of crafty things.
Lovely.
So they're card making, painting, collage, art, journaling, that sort of stuff.
Nice.
This one, there's a £3 fee, which is cash on the night, just because the person's bringing their craft supplies.
Yeah.
So they'll want to replenish it every time, which is fair enough.
Fun fact there, that if you do crafty activities with your hands, then it actually releases dopamine into the brain. Recommend craft.
But yeah, so that's set up by Just Creative Julia.
Good on Julia.
But yeah, that's happening at the Exchange Pub in Southend-on-Sea tomorrow evening, and also the third Monday of every month. Also happening tomorrow, there's a lot of this going on. Like, as I said, I am sorry if you've missed this because you're listening on a Tuesday. But happening between 1:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon at the Windmill Community Gardens in Margate, organised by Neurodivergent Friends in Thanet. There's a quiet meetup at the garden where you can just get into all aspects of gardening. So there's sorting seeds, harvesting, tidying and garden maintenance, crafting with natural and garden found materials, seed sowing and potting. But it is 18 plus. So if you're wanting to live out your Stardew Valley dreams for an afternoon,
Sounds good, that does. I'd go to that.
head on down to Margate. But you can check out their Instagram page, which is at Thanet Neurodivergent Friends. Yeah, or just Google Thanet Neurodivergent Friends, and I'm sure you'll get more information than we can provide you. Then the one thing I found, well, there are plenty of things not happening tomorrow, but something I found is happening on Saturday the 21st between 1 and 3 p.m. This is happening in Wigan.
Ooh.
So it's a bit further our direction.
Up our way.
At the Hidden Gem Cafe in Wigan. It's a young person's neurodiversity session. So it says it's an opportunity to learn about some of the options and practical steps you can take to support yourself and others with their mental health. All of these we've talked about are free to attend.
Apart from the craft one.
Apart from the craft one, but as we said, that's £3.
Basically free.
Basically free. But yeah, so if you're a young person, it says aged 11 plus. If you identify as a young person, but are also canonically over 11.
Canonically.
I don't know what the real word is. Then hop along to that. We were talking earlier about how important it is that like young people especially are able to talk about their own mental health without stigma or judgment.
Yeah.
And this seems the exact right place to be able to do it.
Yeah. Or just if you know a young person who is struggling, then you could go as well. And I think it would help give you tips on how to help them.
Yeah. So that's organised by Embrace, Wigan and Lee. So Embrace is the
Don't literally embrace Wigan.
the organisation. Wigan and Lee is like the constituency.
Yeah.
We went down to both Wigan and Lee, and I would not suggest physically embracing any part of it. Especially the water.
Yeah.
Do not embrace the water.
Don't embrace the water, please. It won't end well for you if you embrace the water.
Doesn't start well, doesn't middle well, certainly won't end well.
No.
I can imagine that being a line in a slightly mistranslated version of Lord of the Rings, where Frodo's looking at the mirror of Galadriel and she's like, do not embrace the water.
Yeah. It doesn't start well, it doesn't middle well, and it doesn't end well.
But with that, I think that's plenty to be getting on with for this episode of The Autistic Experience. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Next Sunday, there will be another episode for you to listen to at midday British time. In the meantime, of course, you can go follow us on Instagram at The Autistic Experience to have a look at some of the references we put on, so you can have a read of all of the articles or some of the articles or none of the articles. It's entirely your choice that we've talked about on this episode. Of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, you can go and leave a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on. Thanks, of course, to those who have already left us a nice review. We'll try and see if there are any wordy reviews rather than just stars.
I think Spotify only does stars.
Spotify only does stars at the moment, but we'll try and break in to iTunes and some of the others to see
Google
if there's
Podcasts.
any sort of possible way of finding any nice things you've said to us. But until next week, we will leave you to it. I've been Kieran, she's been Chloe. You go get that free lunch.
Is that our new tagline?
I think it has to.